Give you and welcome to the Locked On Grizzlies podcast. The Memphis Grizzlies get their fourth straight win in a row, this time a significant victory, both for their placement in the Western Conference standings and in the Southwest Division. On Desmond Bane's career game, Tyus Jones having an outstanding season, and looking at a preview for another tough matchup tonight against the Miami Heat. That and much more on this edition of the Locked On Grizzlies podcast. Let's go.
Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And that is correct. This is the Locked On Grizzlies podcast, literally your team almost every day. If it's a weekday, it's every day. Welcome to the Locked On Grizzlies podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are, wherever you're listening, and wherever you are watching, you are having a great start to your week. Of course, you can find the podcast wherever it's available. Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, the Odyssey app. Listen, review, subscribe, free on all platforms. Make sure you make it a part of your day. If you're a new listener, hello, Shawn Coleman here. If you're been a loyal listener for a while now, thank you for being along for the ride. You can find me at StatsSAC on Twitter, credentialed media member with the Grizzlies. Have been covering the team now for 4 years. Your host here, Locked On Grizzlies, your Grizzlies every day. And also you can find us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button below. Lets us know you enjoyed the show. Lets others be able to find the show. And in general, makes the experience as best as it can be for everyone in general. Myself at StatsSAC on Twitter, the show at Locked On Grizz. And can't thank you enough for making us your first listen of the day as well. Want to remind you, our title sponsor of today's show is Prize Picks. It's brought to you by Prize Picks. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code NBA or go to your app store and download the app. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. But before we get started, I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to just take a second and just breathe. If you're eating breakfast, put the bagel down. Just take a second. If you're driving, keep driving. Don't stop driving. But just take a second, and I want everybody who's a Grizzlies fan to realize a pretty fun fact. The Memphis Grizzlies have not been this high in the Western Conference standings this late into the season for over 4 years. That's correct. If you go back to Thanksgiving of, I believe it was 2017. I want to say it was the year before we drafted Jaren. But if you go back to when we beat San Antonio right around the Thanksgiving holiday, we were number one in the Western Conference for like a day. But in terms of the Memphis Grizzlies, this late into the season and legitimately emerging as a clear playoff contender in the Western Conference, the Grizzlies haven't been in this position in 4 years. And how awesome of a feeling is it, right? Especially when it happens as a result of a big victory this past Saturday night against the Dallas Mavericks. The Grizzlies getting a 97-90 victory over the Dallas Mavericks, much like their game against the Toronto Raptors. It was a defensive struggle. And something that really stood out is that the Grizzlies didn't play well at all. 22 turnovers. They shot 35%, 34% from three on 26 threes, made 9 of 26 from three, 12 of 22 for 58% from the line. A little fun fact is that in terms of the past 38 years when these stats, have been kept in NBA history, there's only been 17 times over the past 38 years where a team had 22 or more turnovers in a game, shot under 35% while attempting 25 or more threes, and shot under 60% at the free throw line while attempting 20 or more free throws. Only 17 times that's happened. Before Saturday, teams that did that were 2-15. Well, the Grizzlies did it for the 18th time. And now teams are 3-15. That's how awesome it was to see. And that's what stands out. 4 straight wins without Ja Morant. And the thing is that the Grizzlies are doing it once again in different ways. Offensive outbursts against Sacramento, win the defensive struggle against the Raptors, an absolute blowout, biggest win in NBA history against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then they win a game that they aren't supposed to. So you literally have 4 different narratives. You literally have 4 different game scripts that the Grizzlies have experienced, and they've been able to get it done. Desmond Bane, obviously, we'll get to him in just a moment, but the Grizzlies overall played good defense. Once again, they got the scoring contributions that they needed. Tyus Jones and Steven Adams, both arguably had one of their 2 or 3 best games of the year individually in support of Desmond Bane. You didn't have Dylan stepping up. You didn't have Jaren stepping up in this game. That's fine. It's not going to happen every game, but the key is that you have different options you can rely on. If Jaren or Dylan just are not, they're not to their best level that night, it's nice to have Desmond Bane step up. And did he ever? 29 points, 12 of 20 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3. Career high 29 points, career high 9 rebounds. But the victory itself was so much fun. The getting, a game and a half lead in the Southwestern Division. Now I believe a game and a half lead for the 4th spot in the West. But it was also, that was one narrative of the game, but a little bit after the game, the hours after the game, the moments after the game, they took on a little bit of life of themselves, which was a lot of fun to see. Desmond Bane, and I can certainly confirm because I was there to witness it in the press conference, there was a little bit more juice. There was a little bit more swagger, confidence, just overall, a different level of, confidence in himself, for lack of a better way of putting it. Comments were made, obviously, about Desmond Bane, making it clear that, he certainly remembers being the 30th pick in the 2020 draft. He remembers all the teams that passed him, and he especially remembers it being the Dallas Mavericks, who with Desmond Bane being at TCU for 4 years. The Dallas Mavericks were the biggest presence in the area where he went to college. He was a fan of Dallas. Him and his teammates went to Mavericks games. He envisioned himself with the Dallas Mavericks because he felt he'd be a great fit, and he would be. If you ask anybody that covers the Mavericks, they would tell you in a heartbeat, Desmond Bane would be an excellent fit next to Luka Doncic and the rest of the Mavericks. And the thing is that he felt that he was going to make a good fit for Dallas, but they didn't pick him. They picked Josh Green with the 18th pick in the draft. Several other teams picked players above Desmond Bane who it probably didn't make sense to do it, but the Grizzlies did pick him. And that's the thing that stands out. It's nice on its own to see Desmond Bane emerge into a more confident version of himself. We're not only seeing the evolution of Desmond Bane's game, but in the personality that he is. He's a very confident, a very kind, he's an outstanding young man, from all accounts, but a very confident young man as well. And we're seeing that come out more and more. But I'll be honest with you, is this. It was a lot of fun being a fan of the Grizzlies as well, and being someone that covers the team and things like that, someone who's kept up with the team for decades, someone who has felt on many draft nights and for many years after draft nights, like the Mavericks do right now and their fans do right now, of knowing what it feels like to have cheered for a team that missed out on those draft picks, that didn't make the obvious smart choice on draft night, that has not developed draft picks. We've been there as Grizzlies fans. We know how that's felt like. We've had a decade of knowing what that feels like. It's nice to be able to have the other shoe fit finally. That's what stands out to me. Desmond Bane having the fun that he did, it was a lot of fun to see that. But now we're starting to get to the next level of reaping the benefits, of reaping the success of these draft night decisions that the Grizzlies have hit on over the past few years. It's not only drafting the right guys, it's developing them over a quicker time frame and at a higher level than anybody could have thought. Desmond Bane on Saturday night, it was the 10th time this year he has hit 4 more threes in a game. Only Steph Curry, CJ McCollum, and Buddy Hield had done that more as of Saturday night. You don't expect that type of production from a second-year player. And the fact that he had a career game in arguably the biggest game of the year, the most significant game of the year for the Grizzlies against the Mavericks, is what was awesome. It was finally nice to see that potential turning into production. We know how well the Grizzlies have developed their players. We know how many right draft decisions have been made. We know that that's a reason why they've continued to exceed expectations as far as the rebuild go. But now we're getting to the next level where all of that pays off in games that is impacting playoff seeding, and playoff seeding for the 4th and 5th spot in the Western Conference. I get it's early in the season, but the more games like this that we win, the better our chances are of truly having a favorable playoff spot. So seeing the next level of benefits from the drafting and developing and seeing it pay off on the stage that it did, that's not only what separates the Grizzlies in general, but it's what allows for us to maintain confidence despite what has been a certainly inconsistent season so far. And that also is what stands out as well. Beyond Desmond Bane, is that last year when we were exceeding expectations, it was Jonas Valanciunas, Grayson Allen, Kyle Anderson. It was great for them to be able to do that. But the reason why the Grizzlies were exceeding expectations for much of the year last year before Ja and Dylan took over were players who probably were not going to be here when the Grizzlies truly were going to be a sustainable winner and contender. Well, now this year, you're seeing that happen finally. You're seeing the Grizzlies in a stretch right now like they had multiple times last year. But it's not from veterans having career years, though Tyus Jones is. We'll get in that in just a moment. But the main reasons why the Grizzlies are being successful right now, and the main reason why they're having the success that they are right now, it's due to the emergence of the Jarens, of the Desmond Banes, of the Meltons, players that not only are going to impact now, but are clearly significant contributors to our future core. And that makes it even more awesome to see this type of success this year than it was last year, because we know that we're seeing the evolution of players that are going to be here for years to come to hopefully lead this team where it wants to go. So you don't want to put too much on a early December win, but when it comes against the Mavericks and it has impact on the division as well as Western Conference playoff seeding, I'll take it all day long, especially when it came the way it did with Desmond Bane playing as well as he did. But as well as Desmond Bane played, he certainly had some help. And one of those players that stepped up was Tyus Jones, who himself is on pace to have a career season. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Before we do that, though, do want to talk about our title sponsor, which is Prize Picks. And the great thing about Prize Picks is that it gives you the ability to play the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. Prize Picks offers more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and offers all the superstar players as well as bench players, only recording a handful of minutes each game. All you have to do is you pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. And all of Prize Picks users can deposit and use the promo code. They will receive a 100% instant deposit up to $100. You just got to use the promo code NBA. That's the great thing about it. Just use the promo code NBA, and up to $100, you'll get a 100% instant deposit match from prizepicks.com. Don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code NBA, or go to your app store and download the app today. The great thing is also about the end of the year is that we have so many great sports that are going on all at once. Obviously, yesterday was Selection Sunday when it came to the college football bowl season. 42 bowls that are coming up. So many of those bowl games are probably going to happen at the same time. Well, if you're someone who has, run into the hassle of trying to juggle many different ways to watch all the shows, sporting events, and in general you want to watch, I have a way for you to be able to get rid of that hassle, and that's DirecTV Stream. It brings you live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite shows, movies, and sports all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no more need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of all the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtvstream.com. That's directtvstream.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. So obviously this season so far has been defined by the Grizzlies seeing their young players, their young, pieces of the present and the future step up and deliver. They are all going to the next level, right? We've seen Ja go to the next level. We've seen Jaren over the past 2 weeks go to a new level. Desmond Bane has been on another level all year. But it's not just the young players that have played well, which is the most important part of this year. You've heard me say that numerous times. But it also is important to identify that there have been some veteran contributions as well. Now, obviously, Steven Adams has struggled at times this season, but on Saturday night, the first time he had scored in double digits since October 28th, that's only the second time he had a double-double in a Grizzlies uniform, 8 offensive rebounds. His contributions on the offensive boards really made a difference, and all of it was needed to win a close game. But Tyus Jones especially stood out. And I think that there is a bit of extra significance on Tyus Jones, how well he's playing right now, when you consider the calendar year that he has had. Listen, you've heard me talk about it before in the 2019-2020 season, from December of 2019 to March of 2020, before the suspension of the season happened due to COVID. Tyus Jones was absolutely spectacular. He was contributing in multiple ways as a player. Obviously, the very, very smart, effective facilitator we all know and value him for. But also being a scorer. He was producing the best shooting percentages of his career. And we saw that his value how important he was when he was playing between December and March at that time, but also how valuable he was when he wasn't playing in the bubble. Well, then we come to December of last year to start the 2020-2021 season, and let's be honest, he just fell off. Tyus Jones was not that productive last year. Yes, he still was elite when it came to assist to turnover ratio, but in general, he overall was not adding the same scoring punch, the same shooting success. And it even got to the point to where late in the season, the Grizzlies tried to jumpstart Justice Winslow. They put him as the main backup point guard, and Tyus Jones was out of the rotation. The reason why? The Grizzlies needed as many options in their rotation. They needed as many players as possible that could do multiple things: pass and shoot, defend and pass, catch or shoot and block, whatever it may be. Tyus Jones last year, I'm not saying that he didn't add contributions at times scoring, but outside of his excellent decision-making and passing, he just didn't add a lot of value. And then we go through the summer where there are rumors, obviously, of Tyus Jones on an expiring contract, potentially being in trade talks. We see Jonas Valanciunas and Grayson Allen who were traded. We see a lot of talk about the Grizzlies' improved playmaking across the board. A lot of different, if you were reading the tea leaves, a lot of different narratives were out there that certainly weren't encouraging for Tyus Jones's future with the franchise. But then yet again, Tyus Jones is someone who's been here before. This is his 7th season in the league. He's been here. He knows how the business side of things work, so he didn't let it affect him. And thankfully he didn't, because now that we're a quarter into the season, so take this with a grain of salt, Tyus Jones is legitimately having the best season, the best offensive season that we've seen him have in his NBA career. Just go to Saturday night: 16 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, only 1 turnover. He has an 88-15 assist to turnover ratio this season, just shy of a 6-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, something that we all expect from him. But the other big thing is that he's back to being a player that is offering value in multiple ways. The assist to turnover ratio is there, but the overall defense and steal rates are there as well. Numbers would suggest that it seems as if Tyus Jones may actually be a bit better on the court defensively than Ja Morant. Again, that's no slight towards Ja. His defense is still something that's working in progress, but it also certainly is a compliment to Tyus to continuing to evolve his game to try to become a better defender. But the overall big key is, and what's so encouraging to see, is that Tyus Jones truly is shooting the ball the best that he's done in his career. 47.3% from the field, 41.6% from the three-point line, a 58% true shooting percentage. The same way that we see Tyus Jones add value through his decision-making and add value through his passing, because he's so good at making the right decisions when it comes to facilitating the offense and passing, we're seeing that through his scoring. We're seeing him make the right decisions of knowing when to pass, when to facilitate, and when to score, when to take urgency and score. And we're seeing that competence be successful. His floater game is coming on strong. His three-point efforts are certainly there. He is a clear asset now in multiple ways, which is exactly what the Grizzlies need out of their secondary facilitator outside of Ja Morant. And so that's the thing that's spectacular about it, is that the Grizzlies, even without Morant being in the fold right now, they've maintained a good level of play because of how well Tyus Jones is playing. Now, another discussion that obviously in time will be had, not right now. And I do want to remind folks that I have another podcast out today with the wonderful Matt Hurdlicka, one of the best minds out there when it comes to covering the Grizzlies. I talked with him about this subject specifically. Make sure to check it out on your podcast, audio-only podcast feeds today as well. The thing about Tyus Jones, though, is that he is an expiring contract. And yes, you could see it making sense for the Grizzlies to continue to take a step towards really wanting to feature their young talent. And before Tyus Jones were to maybe walk in free agency over the summer, the Grizzlies could potentially use him as a way to facilitate a trade. Maybe trade him for other assets like they did when they traded Grayson Allen and got future second-round picks. But also he could be used as a money matching aspect of things and to bring in, a bigger talent. There's a variety of different ways you could look at it happening. But the point is that with Tyus Jones' improved play, there are many different avenues you could take to maximize on the value of his improved play. But even if it led you to having Tyus Jones stay with the Grizzlies this entire season, riding the wave of his positive play and seeing how far it could take you for this young core to get more playoff experience, if that leads to him potentially walking to greener pastures in the summer, going elsewhere in free agency, you're fine with that. He has paid his dues. He's done everything that you could expect of him and more. But with Tyus Jones' improved play, if you want to go the route of potentially trading him still at the deadline, his improved play means a better return. But his improved play means that if you want to keep him around to truly know that you've got two very good point guard talents on your roster, if you ride the wave of his positive play throughout the rest of the year, you reap the benefits of the Grizzlies being able to have an even better chance with him on the roster of getting where they want to get this season. So it's a good problem to have. But while we're all talking about, and as should be the focus because they're the most important players, while we're talking about all the young players stepping up and playing well this season, also certainly need to give a lot of acknowledgement to Tyus Jones and how well he's playing and how big of a value it's been with Ja Morant out. So we'll see what happens in time. But for right now, the hope is that Tyus Jones can certainly continue to play well because he's going to need to play well for nights like tonight when the Grizzlies' fortunes of playing against teams that they likely should beat or playing against teams that are missing their biggest talent. That luck is going to run out tonight. Jimmy Butler is scheduled to be back tonight when the Grizzlies take on the Miami Heat. And the last time the Grizzlies faced the Heat, they got absolutely embarrassed on their own home court. Even without Bam Adebayo, who was out then, he's out now. But how can the Grizzlies potentially get a bit of revenge? What will they need to do? It's going to be a very tough ask without Ja Morant. But if players like Tyus Jones can step up once again, the Grizzlies can get it done. We'll discuss that in just a moment. Now, the other thing I'll tell you is this, though, is that we talk about all the time with the Grizzlies, the options that they have. Who's going to step up and deliver? If one option's not available to do it, who else is going to step up? Well, I'll tell you this, Built Bar is a great option because you can have so many options step up and be your taste of the day based off what your preferences are. Have it in the morning for breakfast, have it in the afternoon as a snack. Whenever you choose to enjoy it, Built Bar is going to be a great addition to your day. The health of it, the taste of it, the boost that it gives you. Go to Built.com right now. Choose from over 18 different flavors, and you'll be able also to get 15% off by putting in the promo code LOCKED15 at Built.com. Make Built Bar a part of your day. Go to Built.com, put in the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order from Built Bar. So, hey, I don't know about you, but if betting and wagering is kind of another aspect of things that makes you enjoy sports, the Grizzlies may be one of the better bets in the NBA right now with how well they're playing. But their inconsistency also can make them a risk. Well, if you enjoy betting and wagering on sports, there's no better way to do it than betonline.ag, the fastest and easiest way for you to bet on your favorite sports. A new and updated website allows for you to either go through your mobile device or through your computer. And if you put in the promo code Locked On, you'll get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. NHL, football, basketball, UFC, whatever you enjoy betting on, all the props, all the different opportunities are at betonline.ag. Make sure to take the opportunity to check it out. On tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Grizzlies podcast, we're going to be discussing, obviously, how the Grizzlies looked against the Miami Heat. Can they get that fifth straight win to really make a difference? Plus, looking at the week ahead, another rematch against the Dallas Mavericks, but several key matchups against Western Conference teams, even teams that are outside of the playoff race right now, that are really, really stepping up and playing well. All that and much more on tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Grizzlies podcast. So let's go back to October 30th, and the Grizzlies played against the Heat. And the Grizzlies were riding high after back-to-back nights where they got embarrassed by Portland in the fourth game of the season, but they then went and had an incredible defensive second half against Golden State and beat Golden State to get a huge victory to end what was a very, very tough Western Conference road trip to start the season. Well, 2 nights later, on October 30th, the Grizzlies suffered the first of what had become an early trend this season of embarrassing losses. The second of their 20-point or more losses this season, but perhaps the game where the Grizzlies were dominated the most. In that game back on October 30th, the Heat just couldn't be stopped. 27 points for Jimmy Butler in the first half, combined with 21 made threes on just 37 attempts. the Heat could have beat anybody that game. It was just one of those games where the Grizzlies just did not have a chance, and it just was not there. Well, tonight, things are not going to be as easy as they have been. Jimmy Butler's returning. You have a Heat team that, unlike then, is actually shooting the three-pointer very, very well. And a big key is that not only are you facing a arguably top 5 defense in the Miami Heat, you're also facing one of the slowest teams in terms of number of possessions per game, one of the bottom 5 teams in the NBA when it comes to lowest possessions per game. And what that means is that if you're going to have less overall possessions, the outcome of each possession carries a little bit more value since there's less overall possessions. So going against a tough defense, going against the defense that does very well in the half court when it comes to not letting teams find their best shot option, and playing at a pace where possessions are going to be more valuable, it's going to be a tough task for the Grizzlies. So some things that stand out, obviously, as always, is taking care of the basketball. The Grizzlies have got to take care of the basketball. And I don't mean just by preventing turnovers, but I also mean by, if the extra pass is required, make it. If it takes you a bit more time to see a play through, make it or do it. Don't just take a shot because you feel like you're in a rhythm or you feel like that it just makes sense. The Grizzlies are going to have to put a high priority on finding the best shot selection on each and every offensive possession as much as they can. That's going to be a huge priority for this Grizzlies team. Because the thing about this Miami Heat team, like I said, they're shooting the three a bit better than they were when we first met them. They've been top 10 in the league in three-point shooting over the past several weeks. It's the fact that, yes, you've got Duncan Robinson and yes, you've got Tyler Hero, who are good within their own right shooting the three, but you've also got Gabe Vincent and Max Struss, who are reserves for the Heat, who are shooting the ball very well. A big thing that may not be talked about enough is just how beneficial and productive the Heat's bench has been at shooting the three. Over the past 3 weeks, basically since the middle of November, the Heat are third in the league in terms of three-pointers made by their reserves. Compared to all other NBA bench units, the Heat's bench is third in the league in made threes per game and second in the league in three-point percentage over the past 3 weeks. That is going to be a very tough ask for the Grizzlies to deal with when you consider Tyus Jones is in the starting lineup now, and you're going to be without Kyle Anderson, Brandon Clark, even Zaire Williams. That's going to be a very tough task. Not only are you going to have to consistently guard the three versus the Heat with how well the bench is shooting the three, but you're also with the depleted bench. The Grizzlies are going to have to make sure to stagger starters with bench pieces so they don't absolutely get annihilated in those bench minutes with how well this Heat team is shooting the three right now in terms of their reserves. That's another thing that's going to have to stand out. How will the Grizzlies be able to defend the three overall, but also make sure in those moments where bench units from both teams face each other, they don't get too far behind if the Heat's bench can continue shooting the three well, as they have been for the past nearly month. So that's the other key thing. But the other big thing as well is that one area where teams can find success, where teams can either stay close with the Heat or maintain the lead, is getting through the free throw line. That's the overall thing. The Grizzlies can't expect to win this game against a team as talented as the Heat, especially with Jimmy Butler back. You can't sit here and expect to win this game if you have 18-plus turnovers. You're shooting under 40% from the field. You're shooting under 60% from the free throw line. That may fly with the rosters you're playing with of Dallas without Luka or Oklahoma City or what have you. But against the Heat, it's very unlikely that's going to work. It's very unlikely that's going to lead to a win. So it's not only finding the right shot on a consistent basis on offense. It's not only taking care of the basketball. It's not only defending the three consistently, while also making sure through Taylor Jenkins that lineups are structured to where starters and bench pieces can play together so the Grizzlies don't lose those minutes where it's mainly bench units going against each other in this game. But the other big key is that the Grizzlies can make it to the free throw line on a consistent basis. They're going to have to hit their free throws. That includes Steven Adams, it includes Jaren Jackson Jr., and includes all of them. They're going to have to hit their free throws because this likely is going to be a close game, and that can make all the difference in the world. So the Grizzlies are going to be facing a very tough team once again in the Dallas Mavericks. Not only are they playing good defense, and not only will they have Jimmy Butler back, but they're also shooting the three very well. So the Grizzlies are basically just going to have to pick their poison. If you want to let Jimmy Butler, obviously defend him, but if he gets on a roll and he's making twos, you kind of live with that. As long as you're making sure that there's a bunch of contested shots and the Heat don't get on a hot streak from three to support Jimmy Butler like they did the last time these two teams played. So taking care of the basketball, consistently finding the right shot, making sure to defend the three and also stagger lineups to where you don't get beat by a big margin when bench lineups are on the court. And finally, for the Grizzlies, making sure that they are doing their best in this game to take advantage of extra opportunities, take advantage of those offensive rebounds, take advantage of those free throws to try to create as many advantages as possible. It's going to be a hard task against how well this Heat defense is, even with Jimmy Butler back, though. With how well this Grizzlies team right now is playing and figuring out ways to win, I think they'll make it a very close game, and hopefully we'll be able to get our fifth victory in a row. Well, regardless of what happens, we're going to be right here with you to discuss it all on tomorrow's Locked On Grizzlies podcast. Also, don't forget to check out a special version of Locked On Grizzlies with Matt Herdlicka, available where podcasts are. That will be available, obviously, all day long as well. You can check that one out, plus this edition of Locked On Grizzlies here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button below, and obviously on your podcast network as well. Until next time, my name's Shawn Coleman. Go Grizzlies, and we'll talk to you again soon here on the Locked On Grizzlies podcast.